The countdown is on. The sweetest season of the year is here. From December 13th to January 2nd, St. Kitts and Nevis comes alive once more with vibes galore, energy to explore, and moments sweeter than ever before. Sugar Max 54, sweet to the core. The stage erupts with the passion of Calypso, the sweet sound of Pan, the heat of Soca, dazzling pageants and traditions that make you love Carnival even more. Dance to the streets at Juve, celebrate folklore, and revel in the Grand Carnival Parade, a celebration of rhythm, color, culture. Sugar Mass 54, sweet to the core.
If you need protection, you need one who you can trust. To secure your investment, you need one who'll do you just. TDC Insurance, you're the one that you can trust. TDC Insurance, you're always safe with us.
TDC Insurance is your go-to insurance company for all your insurance needs. We take pride in offering you the best solutions and ensuring our customers are fully satisfied. TDC Insurance, we take good care of you, guaranteeing you peace of mind.
You're always safe with us.
This Christmas, add postpaid for a festive win-win. We're gifting you a 50-inch smart TV or a $400 Amazon gift card. When you add a Flow postpaid mobile plan to your home internet, you can celebrate the most wonderful time of the year with a big screen or big shopping. Let us upsize your TV or clear your Amazon cart. Either way, you come out on top. Add postpaid to internet today for your festive win-win. Visit discoverflow.co for more info. Terms and conditions apply.
And a pleasant good day to you and yours. The time 10 minutes moving away from the 10 o'clock hour, and we have with us, as we usually have once a month, but he was otherwise engaged when he was due to be here before, but we have agreed that he is not engaged at this moment, so he is here to fulfill his normal obligations. So let me say good day to you, Mr. Africa. How are you today?
And giving thanks for life, giving thanks for another opportunity. Yes, as you did mention, my engagement, normally I would come and sit on the second Wednesday of the month, each month, which would have been 2 days from now, the 10th. But I'm here. Due to communication with you, Quint, you agreed that I can come and sit in, irrespective of the ships that are in the town. There are 4 of them down there, and that's the type of, if you will want to call it a sacrifice, that I will make.
Yeah.
The money is not, it's the minds and the hearts and the souls of our people, which is much more dear to me than the money.
And that is commendable.
Thank you.
Quite commendable, because
For the fact,
very few individuals in these days see the significance of passing on history, as opposed to, yeah, you make $1, but once you're comfortable with it, then we really appreciate the fact that you say, look, me being here to disseminate this information is of paramount importance.
Exactly. And so I wish to say, Grand Rising to all. I did send out, albeit late, notice, a day and a half notice to my more inner circle and letting them know of the changes. And I have gotten information that the flight coming from Barbados, I have a group that comes, it's almost like an annual pilgrimage from the U.S. Embassy in Barbados. I look forward to them. We have established this relationship for quite a while. I cannot even count how long. It's probably more than 8 years. So I have committed to keep this relationship like that. That said, I wish to send Grand Rising greetings to all, especially Mrs. Henry, my dear Queen Mother. She's very astute, former educator, and she knows her psychology, which I love about her, because I look forward for when she was going to be trying those psychological Googlies and how to really deal with them, you know. So yes, Grand Rising to all, Grand Rising to Mrs. Henry. I just want to take this opportunity though, because of the time and the season is going into a more festive, religious season. So I just want to do a review, and I will save a lot of the content for come January, God's willing, and beyond, where I will dive deeper into many of the nuances, the 13 nuances that I have identified and I wish to present and to convey, and so we can build on it. Now, my program is not to try and mash on the toes of any persons, culturally or religiously, because I came from a religious background myself. But having to do my research and having to chosen the path of remembrance. Like I said, remembering, and like this is my theme, this is the topic, the overall topic, to remember. And to remember is not just a recollection, but to remember is to really go back and salvage what we were taken away from, because it's not that we were severed. We was not severed, because from the African continent and from the wider diaspora to these little lands that we call home, St. Kitts and Nevis, in between is water and space, land space, aerial space, you know? And water and space, or wind, or that space, is some of the elements that we know were the building blocks to what you see here. Like when you say, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was with God, and the Word became flesh. The manifestation you see here is because of the Word, the vibration, and all that we see here. And we know the whole, what we call land today, was submerged, was beneath the water before the very first mound or mountain rose from the waters, the primordial waters of Nun, which in Christian and Islamic tradition, they say Noah, and Noah built this ark, and so forth. But the bottom line was water, the primordial waters, where everything started. There's 80% of the water where the baby, the fetus, would nurture and grow in, and so forth. All of that is what a part of what we present, and wants to present it in a simple, tangible way, so that we don't lose our people, precious souls that are yearning for this information. So that said, I just want to start as I've started before.
Letter from King Leopold II of Belgium to colonial missionaries, 1883. Part 1. Reverends, fathers, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to fulfill is very delicate and requires much tact. You will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must inspire above all Belgium interests. Your principal objective in the Congo is never to teach the niggers to know God, this they know already. They speak and submit to a Mungu, one Zambi, one Zakamba, and what else I don't know. They know that to kill, to sleep with someone else's wife, to lie and to insult is bad. You are not going to teach them what they know already. Your essential role is to facilitate the task of administrators and industrials, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in the way it will be the best to protect your interests. For these things, you have to keep watch on disinteresting our savages from the richness that is plenty in their underground to avoid them get interested in it, and make you murderous and dream one day of overthrowing you.
So, we already know God in the various names of the nations, like in the Masoretic text of the King James, what became the King James Version. The disbursement of the people from the Babel Tower, and the allotments of those peoples, their lands, their boundaries, and their deities, the sons of God. And if you were to read Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 8 and 9, you will find that over the time,
unlike the familiar tale of Eve, who was crafted, creation set a precedent of partnership and parity from the
scriptures, their own interpretations into certain scriptures, and to bring about what we know. So in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 8 and 9, if I can paraphrase, it says, when Elion this allotted the peoples the lots, and if you go to Genesis, when did this happen? It occurred when the disbursement of the people from, according to the King James Version, where there was this Babel Tower where everyone spoke the same language and so forth, and for whatever reasons, they wanted to reach beyond the heavens, and there was the council of the Elohim, the council took place and said, let us go down and disrupt their plans and so forth, and the disbursement of the people took place. Now, in this
when you say Elohim, elaborate a little bit on that for me.
Thank you. Because if you read just a simple King James Version, which is the English version, and most of us read the English version, not all of us in a global perspective, because persons hold daily to what they was given, be it the Syriac text language, be it the Arabic language, be it the Hebrew language, and other languages, be it even the Armenians. And you see that we did have this conversation about the churches, and in 1054 AD, how they severed and they split. You have Catholicism, you had Orthodoxy, and then you had the disbursement of the Chalcedon churches and the non-Chalcedon from the councils and all of that coming down through the centuries. Persons held daily to their scriptures, and persons would have given concerted effort into getting their own translations into the Bible, into their own translation, into their own languages, so that they could have a better understanding of these people. El Leon, or El Elyon, is more like Hebrew or Aramaic for the Most High. Elohim, Elyon, El Elyon is single. Elohim is a plural form. So when the allotments was given to these people, it was probably 70 nations or 72 nations that came out of that Babel Tower. They was given their lands, they was given their inheritance, they was given their protection. Israel ended up with Yahweh. But in the Masoretic text, you would not understand that Israel was one of the sons of God, the sons of Elion, like Baal and Dagon and all of the other deities or gods or sons of gods or whatever you call them, because...
But when you say Baal, isn't there part in the Bible where people now feel that Baal is hedonistic, evil, and so is that the same Baal?
Yes, it is the same Baal, because other people will have reference to say, well, other deities was hedonistic, like, other, because there were many. You see, monotheism and henotheism and all of those things that will describe one or more than one, or acknowledging that there's more than one, but this is the one, the Most High. Those are the things that the monotheistic way, where you acknowledge there's one, or you might acknowledge that there's more than one, but this is the one. Yahweh or Jehovah is the one. This is what the Masoretics, the Masorites are the scribes and elders of Israel. But when it said that Yahweh was allotted to Israel, and the sons of, instead of saying the sons of God, you say the sons of Israel. But Israel was nowhere to be found in the disbursement of the people from Babel Tower. Remember, Israel came out of Egypt as Jacob went into Israel as himself, probably his wife, and after Joseph was sold into Egypt, and his brothers because of the famine. So a group of 15, 20, 60, 70, maybe, that does not prescribe nations of people. You would have had to have more members of that, because Jacob probably had animals and he had servants and so forth to keep, to assist him along the way. But coming out of Egypt, they became a nation. That was long after the Tower of Babel. So for the Masoretic text to say that the sons of Israel, when the Dead Sea Scroll, or the Septuagint, or the LXX as it is known as, the Septuagint, says the sons of God, or the angels of God, speaks to where the Masoretic text in the 7th to the 10th century CE did something to adjust all of this Baal and Asherah and the groves of Asherah to sideline those other deities that was allotted to other nations. Remember, Dagon was allotted to the Philistines. And with the fighting with probably how close they were to the nation of Israel after Israel was established, at times Dagon will be victorious where they took the Ark of the Covenant from Israel. Now, the apologists of Judaism and Christianity will say that, okay, the children disobeyed, so they was punished. Why Dagon, the Philistines took the Ark from this way, But it was always that all of these entities, the deities that was allotted to the 70 nations, they have their own energies, because there were fire deities, there were water deities, there were earth deities, and there were air deities. So these are the components that made creation, right? And all of these deities was allotted. If you want to say angels, allotted. But they were the council. They were the council. Even who we call Satan today, or Lucifer, was a part of the council. Because in Job, chapter 1, it will say, well, when the sons of God came to give an account to the Most High, and Lucifer or Satan was amongst the council, the question would be asked, if Lucifer was thrown out of heaven and all of that, banished, how would Lucifer come back to the council? And it is similar to how governments are established, where we heard Premier Mark Brantley with his budget address and so forth. That has been done on an annual thing. Okay, we subscribe to this calendar, with 12-month calendar, And at the end of the year, they do it under the December. I don't know, as the calendar that was then, what time of the year that where the sons of God gave their stewardship to the Most High Elion, to the keeping of the nations, because it continued all in Job. That proved that the book of Job is a very old book. Okay? And it's covered there with the sons of God came to the council and gave their stewardship, their accounts, their stewardship to the keeping of the nations, to keep the balance of things, which were their responsibility from the very first time of even the disbursement, and probably even earlier.
Okay, we're going to take a bit of a commercial break, and when we come back, I'm going to play a clip, because what I want is that people, recently we had a discussion, and I asked a particular lady if she was aware that Adam had a first wife. You know, Adam had, and a lot of people don't know about this other wife, you know. There's so much that people don't know in relation to the Bible because of the way the Bible has been morphed into something that is supposed to be used as a weapon against for the oppression of a people. You understand?
Yeah, and that lady, the name was Lilith.
Yes.
Lilith.
So I'm going to take a bit of a commercial break, and when we come back, I'm going to start with us playing the clip. But also in playing the clip, we're going to realize why the woman was moved out of the doctrine that we have today. We have now the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, which are three men, right? There is also a story of Satan, and Satan being the God who is dominant within our present realm today, right? Contrary to what we hear today, where we hear that, you know, God is in heaven and Satan is in hell, and we go through certain things, and then God is going to come back for his people. There's so much that has been moved out of what we have today as the Bible, that no wonder our people are so easily swayed and so easily led. Fortunately, you moved away, and fortunately, I moved away. And it's funny that a lot of us who grew up in the church from an early age, a lot of us were able to move away, but we were only able to move away because we subjected ourselves to different aspects of the biblical teaching as opposed to holding on to just one. Okay, so we're going to take a bit of a commercial break, and when we go back, for those of you who never heard of Adam's first wife and why we don't hear anything about her now, why we hear about the wife Eve, you'll be able to at least touch a bit of that story.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
If you need protection, you need one who you can trust. To secure your investment, you need one who'll do you just. TDC Insurance, you're the one that you can trust. TDC Insurance, you're always safe with us.
TDC Insurance is your go-to insurance company for all your insurance needs. We take pride in offering you the best solutions and ensuring our customers are fully satisfied. TDC Insurance, we take good care of you, guaranteeing you peace of mind.
You're always safe with us.
The countdown is on. The sweetest season of the year is here. From December 13th to January 2nd, St. Kitts and Nevis comes alive once more with vibes galore, energy to explore, and moments sweeter than ever before. Sugarman's 54, sweet to the core. The stage erupts with the passion of calypso, the sweet sound of pan, the heat of soca. dazzling pageants, and traditions that make you love Carnival even more. Dance to the streets at Juve, celebrate folklore, and revel in the Grand Carnival Parade, a celebration of rhythm, color, culture. Sugar Mass 54, sweet to the core.
This Christmas, add postpaid for a festive win-win. We're gifting you a 50-inch smart TV or a $400 Amazon gift card. When you add a Flow postpaid mobile plan to your home internet, you can celebrate the most wonderful time of the year with a big screen or big shopping. Let us upsize your TV or clear your Amazon cart. Either way, you come out on top. Add postpaid to internet today for your festive win-win. Visit discoverflow.co for more info. Terms and conditions apply.
And the time is 10:33. And before I play that clip, Africa.
Yes.
You are aware of Lilith because you called her name. And we have spoken on numerous occasions and asked the question as to why is it that this gospel that we hear is the woman has been omitted. We know in the Jesus Christ story where there was Mary who had a link with God, Jesus. We know also of other instances where women, for whatever reason in the Bible, are, rather than being referred to as women or women of virtue, whenever they are supposed to be independent or dominant, we hear of them referred to as harlots or whores or that kind of stuff. And we've questioned why, or we used to question, or we might question why, even though you and I may know, we question because we want others to ask the question and therefore be enlightened. Having said that, when you start, you usually play this clip where Leopold is saying, when you go to these people, do not tell them what they already know. They know right from wrong. They know not to steal. They know not to covet. They know not to. Does that not therefore suggest that whatever you're going to bring to these people, you're going to twist it in a way that it brainwashes them or it causes them to be subordinate or to conform?
Exactly. And this is the crux. This is my theme, because to remember is something that we don't take lightly, you know, because we realize the damage that was done, the way they presented a narrative for us not to even remember and to interrogate and to do what I call my forensic analysis. But yes, I did mention the name Lilith because I have read Jewish literature, some.
Yeah.
Recall that we had a conversation about the Talmud, okay? And maybe for this society, this Christian society, maybe they're not willing to skim the pages back to the Jewish, the Jewish aspect of it. But if we're going to say that what we inherit in the Bible is a Judeo-Christian Bible, the 66 books is not just the Gospels and the letters from Paul and the others, but also the Tanakh or the Torah. In Jewish literature, Lilith is there. But most Christian pastors, they're not too keen on it because it's going to open up a can of worms.
But we want to open up a can of worms. You and I want to open up a can of worms. And the reason why we want to open up a can of worms is that we want to put people in the position where they think in a different mode as to the mode where Leopold wanted. We are in the Leopold mode.
Good.
We are in that mode where we have drunk and eaten and partaken of what they brought, what they distorted and imposed upon us. So when we open the can of worms, we are going back to remembering the origin and going back to what we knew before they contaminated or corrupted our thought process. Because if you're going to tell a people, look, when you go to them, they already know right from wrong. They already know good from bad. They already know not to steal. What else could you be bringing if they know right from wrong? They know good, and it has to be that what you're going to be bringing is not good.
If you investigate some of the earlier chapters in Genesis, there's a conflict. There's like splices, putting pieces together.
Yeah.
Because where would Lilith fit in when Eve was taken from a rib of Adam? Was Lilith, like when they say both male and female, that was created,
Yeah.
Was Lilith came up just like how Adam came in a full body form? Or was she taken from the right side of his ribs or the left side of his ribs?
And that again is another conflicting thing, because where we might find in certain literature where she was taken as just a rib, right? Just a rib out of the man. But then in other literature it's going to tell you a whole side of the man was used. But with Lilith, it was neither a rib or a side. So we're going to now play the clip, and it's about 7 minutes long. I'm going to let it play in its entirety because I want you to listen to the whole thing, where you understand why we do not hear about Lilith, and why Lilith does not fit into the brainwashing that we've had of both male and female.
And before you play the clip, Lilith is seen in scriptures, if you interrogate scriptures, as like a city that was desolate, and it's just like certain type of creature inhabit that city, like vulture, or she is seen as a creature now that is just roaming the earth. Like,
well,
according to Jewish literature.
You made a point, and I'm going to go back to it because of what you just said. You said if you really scrutinize the Bible, Genesis, and the different books, you will find that there are missing pieces. You'll find that the Bible starts to tell you something, and then there's this gap, and then it jumps to something else. For instance, the Jesus Christ story, it starts to tell you about Jesus, the birth, the manger. Then next thing you know, he's in Bethlehem or wherever, and next thing, bam, he disappears. And the next thing you hear of him, he's a grown man.
No,
Why?
but also, there are scholars who are saying, well, these missing years of Jesus, we know he was in Egypt. Mrs. Henry will attest to that. Mrs. Henry will even attest that Moses got all what he knew from Egypt. I, as a child growing up, I would have had to know the Constitution, some of it, the national anthem, and so. Likewise Joseph, even likewise Jesus. You will hear certain religious areas where will tell you Jesus is missing years from certain time to certain time. He ended up in India or Tibet or some other mystical areas where he would have learned. And
yeah, but the question, Africa, is why is he missing? Why is it that you bring a book to us and you tell us that we're supposed to hold this because this is the word of God, but there are gaps in it? And there's this big gap where the Son of God, from your depiction, is missing. Don't you think questioning minds are going to wonder, well, what happened to him from this point and until he comes back as a big man? And this is why me as a child growing up, this is what made me start to drift away from what they were telling me. You understand? Because when I see these gaps and I ask question, here's what I'm told: don't question God. Don't question the Bible. You're crazy. That's a sin that you'll burn in everlasting fire for that. Yeah, I mean, come on, Mark.
There was a fear factor.
Yeah.
Why they would, and even today, this is being peddled in, like, you know what I mean? Here is it, a loving God send you on a journey, and the loving God on your journey, the loving God gonna want to make sure that your final recompense is a hell of fire?
Everlasting. Anyway, so let's get into the clip.
Unlike the familiar tale of Eve, who was crafted from Adam's rib, Lilith's story begins with a profound assertion of equality. Made from the same earth as Adam, her creation set a precedent of partnership and parity from the very start. Both formed from the dust of the ground. Lilith and Adam were initially envisioned as equals, two beings meant to share the bounty of Eden without hierarchy. But this vision of parity was soon to be challenged. Imagine standing in a world new and fresh, with every opportunity at your fingertips, yet bound by an expectation to conform. For Lilith, this wasn't just a philosophical debate. It was about her essence, her very role in Eden. Exactly. And here lies the crux of Lilith's journey. Her creation from the same material as Adam wasn't just about physicality. It was symbolic, a declaration of her independence and equality. But what does it mean, really, to be created equal in Eden? For Lilith, it meant the right to choose, to voice her opinions, and to stand as Adam's equal in every aspect of life. As we've seen, Lilith's creation set her apart, not just in form, but in spirit. But what happens when an equal seeks more than just shared existence? What happens when she seeks recognition of her autonomy? The story tells us that Lilith and Adam faced profound disagreements. Central to their discord was the issue of dominance in their relationship. Lilith, created as an equal, saw no reason why her voice should be subdued or her presence diminished. This wasn't just a marital spat. It was a fundamental clash of visions. Lilith did not see herself as a mere companion to Adam, but as an equal partner, deserving of the same respect and autonomy. In the folklore, we see Lilith articulating her views fiercely. She challenges not only Adam, but the very order of their world. Her questions are simple, yet revolutionary. Why should my freedom be less than yours? Why should my choices be constrained by your expectations? It was during these debates that Lilith's true strength shone through. Her words were not just whispers in the wind, they were declarations of a soul unyielding. And so, faced with the impossibility of compromise, Lilith makes a choice that would forever change her destiny. She utters the ineffable name of God, a forbidden act that grants her the power to escape her confines. With this act, Lilith does not just leave a garden, she leaves an ideology. She rejects a preordained role crafted by others and chooses instead the path of self-determination. Lilith's departure from Eden is not just physical, but symbolic. It marks the emergence of a new archetype in mythological narratives, the woman who is not villainized for her ambition, but who instead becomes a beacon of strength and independence. What Lilith leaves behind is a legacy of questions and a challenge to the status quo. Her story compels us to consider the cost of personal freedom and the courage it takes to stand alone. Lilith's departure from Eden marks a pivotal shift not only in her life, but in her very essence. As she steps beyond the borders of paradise, the narrative surrounding her begins to change dramatically. Exiled from Eden, Lilith doesn't just fade into obscurity. Instead, she evolves into a figure cloaked in mystique and power. But with this transformation comes a stark reimagining of her character. As Lilith traverses the realms outside Eden, Her image is reshaped by those she left behind. No longer just Adam's first wife, she becomes a symbol of what happens when the established order is defied. In the folklore that follows, Lilith is often depicted not merely as independent but as a supernatural being. She is portrayed as a night demon, associated with the wind and seen as a harbinger of disease, death, and misfortune to newborns and mothers. This transformation isn't just physical, it's deeply symbolic. Lilith's newfound powers and dark associations reflect the fears and anxieties of a society grappling with the notion of a woman who refuses to conform. In many myths, powerful women are often painted with a darker palette. Lilith's story is no exception. Her demonization serves as a cautionary tale of independence taken too far, at least in the eyes of those who penned these narratives. But within this transformation, there's a nuanced layer of empowerment. Despite her demonization, Lilith also emerges as a figure of strength and resilience. She defies not just earthly, but celestial constraints, asserting her will against unimaginable forces. This dual nature of Lilith, both feared and revered, complicates her story. She embodies the eternal struggle between conformity and rebellion, between societal expectations and personal truth. One of the pivotal texts that illuminate Lilith's evolving narrative is the Zohar, the foundational work of Jewish mysticism. In this text, Lilith is not just a mere demon, but a complex figure associated with the spiritual realm. The Zohar delves into the dual nature of Lilith, portraying her as both a destructive force and a misunderstood entity. It's here that Lilith is intricately connected to the cosmic battle between light and darkness, becoming an essential part of the Kabbalistic teachings. In these mystical writings, Lilith's role is expanded to include interactions with archangels and other celestial beings. Her story serves as a cosmic allegory about balance, disruption, and the quest for autonomy. Another influential text, the Alphabet of Ben Sira, presents a narrative that further complicates our understanding of Lilith. Here, she is depicted not only as Adam's first wife, but also as the mother of demons, linking her to a vast progeny of spirits. These texts portray Lilith as a figure who transcends the mortal world, embodying aspects of life and death, creation and destruction. Her story is woven into the fabric of Jewish eschatology, where she becomes a permanent fixture in the imaginations of those seeking to understand the boundaries of divine and human realms. Lilith's presence in these mystical texts is not merely for storytelling. Each mention, each depiction serves as a meditation on the themes of freedom, fear, and the feminine divine. She challenges the spiritual order just as she once challenged the earthly one. Through these writings, Lilith transforms from a historical footnote into a theological and mythological archetype. She embodies the eternal outsider, the other, and her story prompts deeper reflection on the nature of evil and redemption. As we trace Lilith's footprints through these mystical corridors, we encounter not just a character, but a cultural cipher, decoding the complexities of moral and mystical dilemmas faced by humanity across ages. Unlike the...
Okay, so when we delve into that, right, which is really just a smattering of the Lilith story, when we delve into that, Africa, we now understand why it is that in the doctrine they gave us, there's no woman. The woman had to be taken out, because remember, when you start, your theme is the remembering. You notice that Adam and Lilith knew certain things that we don't know now. You understand that she knew the name of the ultimate creator, and that it was not supposed to be called, but she called that name. And in calling that name, she relieved herself from that oppressive subordinate role So what does that tell us? It tells us that today, in the way we are, as elevated as we think we are as a human species, there's so much we do not remember.
And that came down to Jewish literature. Even though myself, African literature goes way beyond that, nonetheless, the central theme there is the woman. And I will always reiterate that our women needs to understand and get to know who they are, because they are aiding and abetting their own demonization,
And
their
suppression.
own subjugation,
Yeah.
and all of that, unbeknown to what it is, because it morphed over into Eve now, and then with it came along the same line where Eve was introduced to this evil entity and so forth, and all of that. You understand?
Yeah.
Our women, especially our black women who were born free, have no idea that they are upholding a sort of religious dogma that keeps them subjugated from being their full potential self.
Hello, caller.
Yes, good day again. Greetings once more in Jesus Christ's name. Yes, the only Savior of sinners from their sins and from hell. By true faith only, by the gospel only, according to the word of God only. He saves us from our sins and from hell, the blood of Christ.
Not me. No, he saved you and others, yeah, us, but me, myself excluded.
No, but you're not saved.
Well,
No,
go
you're not
ahead.
saved,
Go
you're
ahead.
not saved in the first place.
Greg,
Yes.
let's not get into
no.
Greg. Let's not get into always the tit for tat argument. So he makes a
No.
point. He disagrees with you. Go ahead with what you want to say now.
And I agree with him.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that this, first of all, where King Leopold is concerned, okay? This letter that was attributed to him in 1883, at best, is questionable. Where the letter alleged that he told Christians, do not teach Africans about God. There's no hard evidence that this letter is legitimate, and many scholars question it.
Okay. So take a pause there. I even if I were to buy into that, right? Are we not aware of the part he played in Africa? So you're saying
Yes.
okay.
Yes, but I'm just saying that thing about him telling missionaries not to teach Africans about God because they already know about God, that part is at best questionable.
So again, Greg, see, I want you to follow my trajectory. I hear you on that. But what I'm saying, when we look at the history of this man in Africa, is it so far-fetched to believe that he would come up with such a thing, or he would do such a thing, when you look at the known history of what was done to people during his tenure?
Well, I do not know if he would go that far as to tell Africans, as to tell the missionaries not to teach them about God, because I probably would think that he might think that they ain't not the God of the Bible. You know? That's what I would think about him. But of course, his history in Africa is very evil and wicked. And he did tell missionaries to teach Africans to only be submissive and to subject themselves to the policies of his Belgian policies.
Okay.
He did tell the missionaries them to teach them such.
Okay.
But the God part is very questionable at best. Yes. But he was a very evil and wicked man, and definitely not a Christian.
Okay, so
Based
go
upon
ahead.
Bible standards.
Yeah.
Now, concerning the Lilith story. The Lilith story first started in Mesopotamia. In Mesopotamian mythology, she was a female demon or wind spirit associated with storms, diseases, death, and seduction. So the Lilith thing is really a Mesopotamian myth. It has nothing to do with the Bible. It has nothing to do with the Garden of Eden, nor Adam and Eve. It's really a Mesopotamian thing. The Jews, certain Jews, I said certain because there were others who were against this adoption in Jewish texts. But certain Jews took from the Mesopotamian and so on, their myth. And this happened about 500, 600, 700 years after the death and resurrection of Christ. So this happened hundreds of years after by the Jews. We had to adopt these myths from Mesopotamia and try to make them say that Lilith was Adam's first wife and she was headstrong and disobedient and that sort of stuff to Adam. But that was just Jews adopting Mesopotamian myths. Where in Mesopotamian myths, Lilith was a demon, a she-demon.
Okay, so hold a second. I'm going to let you finish your point, but so hold a second. Whether it be myth or not, because let's go back to Greek mythology, right? And we know the part that Greek mythology played during the advancement of the Greek people and how they adhered to it. But let's put that aside. Don't you or shouldn't we be concerned that here is a story or a myth of a woman who was Adam's first wife, who was made the very same way that Adam was made, and who, rather than being completely subordinate, was, say, let me use a hypothetical. For instance, let's say Adam looks at his wife and he feels he feels amored, he feels in that position where he wants to make love. Rather than being submissive, because maybe at that moment when Adam is in the mood, she's not in the mood. Maybe there are times when he's in the mood and she's in the mood and she will concur. But what about the times when he's in the mood and she's not in the mood and she says no? From biblical presentation, and you adhere to that, the wife must always be subject to her husband. Whether her husband
in
wants...
everything.
That's it. I'm glad you put that in everything. But here's a story or a myth of a woman who says, no, Adam, right now I'm not in the mood. And because of the fact that she did not or was not subordinate in every aspect, and as you put it, in everything,
according to Ephesians chapter 5.
Yes, she's demonized. And we hear now she's a wind spirit, she's a demon, she's all the bad things, right? Don't you see this morphs into what we do presently today, where we feel as men that women are just supposed to be subordinate to us. And even you today, I don't concur to that. I'm sure Africa don't concur to that. But you even today feel that a woman is supposed to be submissive at every time when a man wants her, without
in
question.
Everything.
In everything. I mean,
based upon Ephesians chapter 5.
So all we want to do is to let people look at these different scenarios, these different stories, these different myths, if you want to call them, and see where they tie into the way we are living today. So shouldn't people question and say, well, how is it that every time a woman wants to stand up and have some autonomy, some equity, that she's demonized? Go ahead with what you want to say now.
Okay. The only time a woman is allowed by the Bible.
You hear that, Africa? Allowed.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, allowed. Yes. The only, as a matter of fact, more than allowed, the only time a woman, I'm going to up the language. The only time a woman must disobey her husband is if her husband is telling her to do something that is contrary to the Bible. That's the only time she must disobey her husband. Just like us, we must disobey the government if he's telling us to do something contrary to the Bible. And anybody who tells us to do anything contrary to the Bible, we must disobey them. So let me make that exception.
So before you go on now, because I want there to be clarity in the people's minds. So you're saying apart from that, in everything else, she's supposed to be subjected to the man.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So go ahead with your point now.
Ephesians chapter 5.
Read Ephesians chapter 5.
Hello?
Read Ephesians chapter 5. Because you keep quoting it.
I'm going to have to go and open me up and that sort of stuff.
Okay,
Maybe while I'm talking to you, I probably could do it. Well, I don't want too much dead ear.
Yes, so go ahead.
Yes, so when you asked about Lilith, and she disobeying
I want you to bring what you want to bring. I don't want what you bring to be influenced by anything that Africa say or I say. I want you to bring your own perspective, even if your perspective is to completely reject it because you say, as you said before, it was adopted from something and it is a myth and so on. I want you to go along that vein.
You adopted from Mesopotamia, yes. So let me see something. So yes, the Lilith issue did come from Mesopotamia, and hold on. Quint, could I just read the passage of scripture for you?
Yes, go ahead.
Because while I was talking, if you realize me,
you were stalling, yeah.
Yes, my speech was a bit stuck. Okay, Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 to 24. I'm going to try read. I'm reading from the English Standard Version, but all other translation I know basically say the same thing. And it says this: wives, submit to your own husband as to the Lord. So in other words, as you're submit your husband as you would submit to your Lord, Jesus Christ, that is. Verse 23 now. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands. Now, as the church submit to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husband. And it ends off by saying, in verse 33, however, let each one of you love his wife as himself. No, let each one of you love his wife as he loved himself. And let the wife see that she respects her husband. The King James says, fear her husband. The English Standard Version says, respects her husband. Both to me basically saying the same thing. So yes, so that's the passage.
Yeah, but
that
in
is
that,
why
but nowhere,
Henry,
nowhere in that passage, even though it says a subject in everything, right? I have an issue with the everything, but nowhere in there it says that she must always do everything that you say, unless it is, as I've said before, in this present world that we live in, where it is dominated by the male, and the male inserted that in there because he wanted that to be the norm. I think it's a bit of a contradiction if you're going to say, love your wives as you love yourself, but at the same time you're saying that she must submit in everything. Because if I love my wife like I love myself, I respect myself, and I know there are certain things that I will not adhere to or conform to under certain conditions. So why is it then, if I love my wife as I love myself, I expect her to adhere to everything under whatever the circumstances or the condition, that she must always be subordinate.
Okay. Brent, let me also read you from that same chapter, Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. Verse 25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Verse 25 again. Husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So while, yes, the Bible says wives are to submit themselves to their husband in everything, of course with the exception of going against the Bible. It tells the husband, hey, husbands, you know, supposed to love your wife as Jesus loved his church and who gave himself up for his church. In other words, the husband supposed to love his wife with a sacrificial love, and a love that would only mold the wife more and more in the image of Christ as she obeyed the Bible by the leading of her husband. That's the kind of love a husband should have for his wife. So a husband who have that kind of life, who have that kind of love for his wife as Christ loved himself, would never abuse his wife, would never tell his wife to do anything that is sinful or wrong, but all that he would tell and instruct his wife to do would be only for her good, to mold her more and more in the image of Christ.
Well, why is it
that's the other part of the story.
Why is it that he must mold her and he must determine what is good for her? Again,
because
go ahead.
Yeah, because Jesus Christ set up the husband as her head, and as Christ is to the church, so in figure or in symbolism, the husband is to his wife.
Okay.
And she is to submit to in everything to him except in sin.
Africa, you want to make an input?
That's interesting. But from the earliest inception, remember Greg warning us, I think it's the very first episode of this program. Greg wanted us to start from, not from the Garden of Eden. He wanted us to start from after the Babel Tower.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember that?
After the flood.
So while it is convenient for Greg to want to come in at the 9th hour of the day, when we were there from the very first hour, the very first minute, second of the day, that's not going to go well, because you're talking about what Ephesians and all them things say. We're talking about the Judeo-Christian, the inheritance of the Judeo-Christian Bible. So here is it, you have the earlier narrative, which is the template for the Christian narrative, and it's all right to throw the baby out with the bath water. And then at the 9th hour now, you're going to take it up from some Ephesians. That doesn't fly with me.
No, but but Africa, he's saying that any of these contexts are so much years after the death and burial of Jesus Christ, and that.
No, that still doesn't fly well with me. It still doesn't fly well with me.
No, I.
Okay? For the fact that Greg wanted us not to start from Genesis, what was Greg trying to hide?
That is wrong.
Yes, you said it. You wanted us to start from after the Babel Tower.
Africa, let me tell you what I said.
Yeah,
let me tell you what I said.
Go ahead.
Greg,
this is what I said.
Africa, let him make it. Go ahead, Greg.
This is what I said, Africa. Men did not disperse from Africa to the rest of the world. Men dispersed from the Tower of Babel to the rest of the world. And that is where the different race and so came from, as men dispersed from the Tower of Babel to the rest of the world. And not only it's a races, that is where the different skin hues, because I believe physically and biological only in one race, and spiritually only in two races, the saved and the unsaved. Those are the only races I know from the Bible. But what I said is that the different skin hues or shades come from after men dispersed from the Tower of Babel. But if you want to know the reason why the world is where it is and that sort of stuff, and how it is and why Christ had to come in the world to die for his chosen ones, you have to start with Genesis. because Genesis is what laid the background as to why the world is today and why Christ had to come
let me
and
ask you
die
this.
for his chosen one.
So let me ask you this then, Greg. I'm going to take a bit of a commercial break. You might have to call back in, and because I want you to call back in and continue your point. But let me ask you this for clarity. If it is that you're saying that race or the distinguishing of color and so is
Yes, skin hues, I prefer to say skin hues, skin shade.
from the Babel point, but but yet still you're saying if you want to understand fully, you go back to Genesis. Are you then admitting that long before the Babel point, man existed?
Of course, the Adam and Eve was many hundreds of years before the Tower of Babel.
Okay,
that is what the flood in between.
That is what me and Africa are trying to get you to admit and so forth. Okay, so hold a minute. I don't know if you wanna hang up and call back because remember we have to play some ads.
Of course, yes,
okay.
Yes, of course, Quinn.
Okay,
but let me say very quickly, ministers and so on who are in the office of elders, deacons, ministers, and so on, who are not biblically, and that is the vast majority of them, are doing far more damage to the cause of Christ and to the church than what good they're doing. That's why people like you and so were turned out because you were not given the answers. Okay. Quinn, take care.
Okay.
The Sound 98.9.
This Christmas, add postpaid for a festive win-win. We're gifting you a 50-inch smart TV or a $400 Amazon gift card. When you add a Flow postpaid mobile plan to your home internet, you can celebrate the most wonderful time of the year with a big screen or big shopping. Let us upsize your TV or clear your Amazon cart. Either way, you come out on top. Add postpaid to internet today for your festive win-win. Visit discoverflow.co for more info. Terms and conditions apply.
This November and December, it's triple the fun at Hosford's Furniture and Appliances and Ashley Furniture Home Store. Shop on hire purchase during our triple cashback season and get triple cashback coupons for free groceries. Plus, a chance to spin the wheel to win every Friday.
Join Sugar Bowl live in store as 3 lucky customers each week spin for fabulous prizes. From flat screen TVs and small appliances to housewares, free groceries, and much, much more.
It's excitement, rewards, and comfort rolled into one. Triple the cashback, triple the prizes, triple the fun! Only at Hosford's Furniture and Appliances and Ashley Furniture Home Store. Hosford's, where style, comfort, and savings live.
The battle for the crown is officially on. Sugar Mass 54 presents the Republic Bank Miss Teen St. Kitts and Nevis pageant. On Saturday, December 13th at 7 p.m., all eyes turn to the Water Park Cricket Stadium as 8 brilliant young queens step forward to represent their schools with pride, purpose, and poise. Cheer for Kimaya McDonald of Keon High, Tatiana Archer of the Immaculate Conception Catholic School, Kamira Williams of Virchow's High, Kayleen Brown of the Charles E. Mills Secondary School, Jewel Nisbet of the Dr. Denzel L. Douglas Secondary School, Galia Philtua of the Baxter High School, Kato Rollins of the Washington Archibald High School, and Selena Alwani of Sky Academy. One stage, one crown, one unforgettable night as these rising stars bring talent, elegance, and school spirit center stage. Who will rise? Who will shine? And who will take home the title? Find out live at the Warner Park Cricket Stadium. Admission is only $50 for adults and $40 for children under 18. Tickets available at skandcarnival.com. Sugar Mass 54, sweet to the core. The countdown is on. The sweetest season of the year is here. From December 13th to January 2nd, St. Kitts and Nevis comes alive once more with vibes galore, energy to explore, and moments sweeter than ever before. Sugar Mass 54.
Let me go right back because that has stuck. So it's back to you, Africa, and you may pick up at whatever point you want to.
Yes. Not to really take away much, but the dialogue, we welcome the dialogue with others. This is what it's all about. So, but it's interesting because there are some things that I have presented, and for some reasons, Greg would not touch on the issue. For instance, when the Nigeria, and this is not to take away, when Trump made his threatening remarks about Nigeria, and Greg presented, where Trump, spoke on behalf of the Christians who were being slaughtered. And I said, well, wow, I took a few days, a week or so, and I did my own investigation and concluded that these Islamists, or this ISWAT, those groups of, Boko Haram in northern Nigeria, Niger, they run up on down Burkina Faso, all the way up to Mali. These guys were slaughtering not because of any religious ideology. They had their own ideology, and they were slaughtering people in general. And when the final count came in, they killed more Muslims than Christians. And I would suppose that they even killed those who they call animists, people who doesn't subscribe to Christianity or Islam. I presented my findings to the radio program, and Greg called him as an ardent listener to the program. And Greg did not say a word as to what my findings was, like how he would say other things and other times. And I realized that Greg is just cherry picking what he feels pleased about, that both Christians and Muslims were being died, and we don't want to see nobody die over in this day and age where you have certain things that's still going on in like Libya, North Africa, from what happened to Libya. So I would have realized before, and I have come to realize Greg's modus operandi. Apart from Lilith, which you presented this morning, I paraphrase what Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 8 and 9 said, and how Yahweh, or Jehovah, from the tetragrammaton 4 letters, Yahweh, Y-A-V-A, Y-H-V-H, those are the tetragrammaton, like you said, Lilith called the name of God. The name of God in the Jewish context was so sacred that they came up with this tetragrammaton, Y-H-V-A, or Y-H-W-H. From this thing, those 4 letters came what, inserting the vowels, what will become Yahweh today, or Jehovah, with the changes from the Y to the J and all of that. And there are denominations that carry those names today, like the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Assemblies of Yahweh carry those names. So I read from, I paraphrase from Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 8 and 9, where the councils, the Elohims, where there was allotted. Now, I don't have the full list of the 70 or the 72 Elohims, or sons of gods, or angels of gods. But definitely there wasn't the sons of Israel, which the Masoretic text from the Masoretes, the scribes, the scholars of the Jews back then. And it's the latest version. How do we know that? It's because the Dead Sea Scrolls, okay, or the DSS in acronym, and the Septuagint, the Greek version, or the LXX, as this is called in scholarly circles. The LXX or the Septuagint would say angels, the sons, the angels of God. The Dead Sea Scrolls, which is much more ancient, from a society, a community around the Dead Sea regions in Palestine, who were known as the Essenes, or they had other names. But they were the ones who preserved these things, and then in 1947, the shepherd boy was looking after his animals and went by these caves and probably threw a rock, something sounded, went in and discovered these scrolls. And it have a lot of Isaiah, because they kept their own copies, like other religious groups of denominations kept their copies, and they did not turn over those copies to like the Council of Nicaea, when they turned their copies over, and the decree went out to burn all the other books outside of these, what we decide to be the canon of books, 66 books and so forth, where the Ethiopians have 81 books.
Hold a second. I want you to reiterate that part. What do you say? The decree went out to do what?
Confiscate, burn all of the other texts outside of what we consider to be the canons of what we agreed on. And like the Ebionites.
So hold again. So why would you want to burn, to gather together and burn everything apart from what you want to push down people's throat, if it is that you know that these things are truth? Why would you want to do that?
Because at this moment, as like Constantine prescribed over it, at this moment, Honor Bishop Eusebius of Caesarea, at this moment, everything was dogma. This is a creed. This is a dogma. From here on going forward, this is the dogma of the church.
Yeah.
Anything outside that would become heresy.
Okay.
They will become a heretic, and the writings will become heresy.
Yeah. So I wanted that to be made clear, so that we understand why is it that we have what we have today as the imposed doctrine upon a people, because from then, all that was there before, even the very same thing that you stole from, you decreed that you would burn it, and everything else that you have now concocted, anything that doesn't follow that line becomes heretic and all that kind of stuff.
So it's not a surprise when certain people, modus operandi will be like, according to what this say, and there are older versions, the Ethiopian version that says something totally different, and there are other books in the Ethiopian version, 81 books, even older than the Catholic version, which is 71 or 72 books. All of those other literature, it's like you're telling me I'm going into a library and you're restricting me from going down certain aisle.
So let me ask you this in Africa. How is it that, if I'm to follow what you're saying, that these books, these scrolls are more ancient, because they are the books that you use to interpret what you now have, how is it that we're told that those books are not accepted because they come years after this and they come years after Christ, and how is it that that is what we're told?
Yeah, that's a good question. But we see from doing your own investigation, we see that even some of the names, Daniel, some of the names of the Jewish members of each tribe, Dan is Dahomey.
Yeah.
Africa, Dahomey, the etymology, as we said in the first episode, of the etymology of words. Once you go back to those things, you will see what Da was, Dahomey, and the serpent and all of that.
Okay. So I want Greg, I see the phone lighting up and I assume it's Greg. But Greg, before I pull you back in, I'm going to play this, because this again brings another spin to the thing, because this is a whole different other story of Adam now. This is a story of Adam that most of the people have never heard this part of Adam's story. Listen to this.
The God most of us grew up learning about, the one who supposedly created Adam and Eve, isn't who you think he is. In fact, according to Ancient,
banned texts hidden for centuries, this God might not be God at all. He's a fraud, a tyrant, a deceiver. His name? Yaldabaoth. This is directly from the Gnostic scriptures like the Apocryphon of John and the reality of the rulers. These are ancient writings the church fought to suppress, and here's why. Yaldabaoth is described as a flawed, arrogant being who claims, I am God and there is no other. But here's the catch, he's not the true God. He's not the transcendent, all-loving creator. According to the Gnostics, he's a lesser, ignorant entity who created the physical world, not as a gift to humanity, but as a prison. That's right. The world we live in, the one we're told was made with love and purpose, is actually a trap, a place to keep us blind, ignorant, and enslaved. Now, let's talk about Adam. In the traditional story, Adam is this passive figure mold from clay, obedient to God and punished for disobedience. But in these banned texts, Adam isn't a fool. He's the first victim of Yaldabaoth's lies and rebel against his tyranny. Gnostic accounts reveal that Adam didn't blindly worship this so-called creator. Instead, he recognized something was wrong. He realized the entity demanding obedience wasn't divine perfection but a flawed, jealous dictator masquerading as God. Here's where it gets even more fascinating. Adam wasn't alone in this revelation. Enter Sophia, a divine being central to Gnostic cosmology. She's the one who accidentally created Yaldabaoth, her spiritual mistake born out of a desire to create without her divine counterpart. Regretting her error, Sophia intervenes. She implants a spark of divine knowledge, gnosis, into Adam. That spark is what makes Adam different, what gives him the capacity to question, to resist, and to seek truth. But Yaldabaoth wasn't about to let that happen without a fight. He's the one who traps Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And that famous tree of knowledge? It wasn't some forbidden fruit meant to test humanity. It was a symbol of liberation, a way for Adam and Eve to access the truth about the world they were trapped in. And guess who encouraged them to eat it? Not Yaldabaoth. The serpent, often vilified in mainstream Christianity, plays a completely different role in Gnostic tradition. It's not the devil. It's a liberator. Think about the narrative shift here. The serpent wasn't trying to lead humanity into sin. It was trying to free Adam and Eve from ignorance, from a creator who wanted them enslaved. The fall of man, according to the Gnostics, wasn't a fall at all. It was the beginning of awakening. And Yaldabaoth? He reacts exactly how you'd expect a tyrant to react. When Adam and Eve gain knowledge, he punishes them. He curses them. He casts them out of the garden, not because they disobeyed some divine plan, but because they saw through the illusion. They recognized the prison for what it was. What's more, the Gnostics believed that this struggle wasn't just Adam's battle, it's humanity's battle. The physical world, full of suffering, chaos, and control, was Yaldabaoth's creation. His goal? To keep us distracted, enslaved, and unaware of our true divine nature. The Gnostic texts, unearthed in 1945 at Nag Hammadi, Egypt, reveal an entirely different story of creation. These aren't random fan fictions. They're ancient scriptures written by early Christian sects that were later branded as heretics by the Roman Church. Why? Because their ideas challenged the foundation of the Church's authority. If the God of the Old Testament isn't the true God, then what does that say about the institutions that worship him?
Okay, I'm going to pause there. I was waiting for you to come back, Africa. The reason I played that is because, you see, this is why I want especially young people to be well read. Like I said, when I was at the age of maybe 7, 8, thereabout, I was already reading Greek mythology, right? At that point, I couldn't get much of African mythology. But because I had been subjected to Greek mythology and I was fascinated with Greek mythology, I knew all of the gods, all the goddesses, the nymphs, that because I was subjected to that, as I was in the church, I could juxtapose what the church was telling me with what I knew of Greek mythology. You understand? And eventually, I decided, look, all of this is just a whole lot of concoctions, right? Man over time has been trying to sway people along a certain line of thinking, and so man at different stages decided to create this and create that to counterproduce that, and then create that to counterproduce. You understand? We see it happening today. We see a church, and out of that church, members come out of that church following mainly the doctrine of that church, but yet still there's a difference, because while they were in that church, they disagreed on something, so they broke away from that church, and then they have this whole other spin to the original doctrine. We see that all the time. So why is it that we as a people can understand that even the so-called Bible has been twisted and distorted and used for particular reasons of suppressing the thought process of individuals?
And in the West, mainly Catholicism and Protestantism, as they are called, those two categories, because in the East now we have Orthodoxy.
Yeah.
In the West, most of what, at least from St. Jerome to the Latin version of the Catholic Church to what we have now in the King James Version, most of what we have in the King James Version, the other versions, the New Standard Version, the New Revised Version, all those things to make it more palatable for us to read in terms of the English context, fine. It came off of the Masoretic text, right? So when we read Deuteronomy chapter 38, verses 8 and 9, we just read it as like English, and not knowing the word Elion or Elion that you asked earlier about, not knowing the word Elohim, which is a plural, and the Elohim would refer to the sons of God or the angels of God, depending on, But now they never refer to the sons of Israel, So that is what the Masoretic texts have done. So we read in the English version, we don't have the footnotes to the English version of that to say, well, how it's going to throw you back into the linguistics, into the other languages, and you get back to the root as close as to. I say Sankofa. I am not fluent in none of the African languages, but I extrapolate from each language or some of the languages in Africa to bring about the narrative that is more palatable to me. You're talking about African mythology.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The Yoruba and the Ifa. I get to learn these things from, the abosoms.
And we're only getting this recently.
Yes.
All during my years coming up as a child, we were never given African mythology. We had everybody else's mythology but our own.
Advance. Because we were taught, we grew up in the English language, and we were taught to take another second language or a third one, and we would have been taking French or Spanish even before we have any idea to say, well, Kikongo or Kiswahili or the Akan language or the Yoruba, nothing.
Yeah.
So we was always in this mode over here in the West, jumping from branch to branch, but in the Eurocentric domain.
Yeah, hold a second there. Greg, is that you?
Yes, it's me, but I'm listening.
Yeah, you can chime in.
Okay. Well, I would like to say, first of all, let me say this. It's because of what I've said earlier concerning the Bible saying, women ought to be submissive to the man as the head in everything. Of course, I said the objection is not in sin, but in anything else. It's because of passages like this. Why? You have both men and women who are affected very much by feminism, that says that what Paul wrote was wrong. Paul wrote wrong things and that sort of stuff. And with all due respect, Miss Henry is a strong feminist who says these things, that Paul was wrong and that sort of stuff. in what he wrote.
Mrs. No, they don't swipe my elder lady like that. She's not feminist. Mrs. Henry, no, she was born free as a black woman, the freest person, and she has an obligation to help to free her women folk, black women folks and other colored women folks. Mrs. Henry knows that. It's not because of that. It's because of Mrs. Henry know that she was a born free and want somebody to put her in bondage, and she refused to be put in bondage.
Yeah. I don't want, Greg and Africa, whenever one is speaking and you hear the voice of the other, make a decision as to who wills this is, because it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Yes,
so go ahead.
correct.
Go ahead now, Greg.
Yes, very correct. Miss Henry does say Paul was wrong in what he wrote. Okay? Now, to say that any author of the Bible is wrong in what they originally wrote, be it Paul or whoever, is to undermine the foundation of Christianity, which is the Word of God. And Paul let you know you're undermining the foundation of Christianity, which is the Word of God. You are not a Christian.
Okay, let me ask you this. Let me interject. Let me interject. Is this the same Paul who used to persecute the Christians?
Yes.
Okay, so don't you find that is a bit of a conundrum there? Because here is one who used to go and he was on his way to prosecute Christians and he got this divine thing, and all of a sudden we're supposed to take everything that he says as holier than thou, never question it.
Right.
Why
right,
is that?
Because God,
you see,
turned
again,
him around. God turned him around.
Again, it comes.
And brought him in obedience to the scriptures.
Again, so you see, this is where. So here you have a man who his whole life was about killing Christians, destroying them, but on his way, you say, others say, this is why we don't agree. Others say God. This is where the God comes in. Just so that we accept it, and we accept it without question, you say, here's this evil, wicked man who used to kill Christians, but then God came to him. And of all the people who were existing, who were righteous or otherwise, this evil person, God decides that he's the one who now is ordained by God, and we're supposed to take everything that he now gurgitates, and we're supposed to accept it because God ordained it.
Well, God made him to. God ordained him to carry out the scriptures, go to the Jews and the Gentiles, but especially to the Gentiles. And God gave him that conversion to true Christianity, to obedience to the Bible, and he was used most mightily of God in the spreading of the kingdom of God.
And what proof do we have that God inspired him?
The Bible. The Bible is all the proof we have.
So we're going around in circles here.
Well, when you're dealing with ultimate reality, you have to go in circles because there's nothing beyond ultimate reality, and and axioms as well. And when it comes to the Bible, we are dealing with ultimate reality. There's nothing beyond the Bible, so we have to just end at the Bible.
When you say ultimate reality, explain that to me or to us.
Ultimate reality is what determines what is right from what is wrong, and what is really reality from what is not reality. And that is what the Bible does.
And who has determined that is the ultimate reality?
The Bible says it itself. Because it is the Word of God.
And we know that Paul was one of those who wrote the scriptures, right?
Amen.
Okay. So, Africa, you want to come in again? I hope the listening audience understand why I asked that question and why I depicted Paul, this evil person that he was, who is then, if we follow Greg, ordained by God in an ultimate reality to decide that what this evil person now gives to us, we must accept as God's word. Go ahead, Africa.
According to the Bible.
Yeah, go ahead, Africa.
It's not so much about the back and forth, because I have much respect for the Christians and their way of life, their dogma, their Bible, but I doesn't really subscribe to that. I know it. I used to be at a certain stage in it, and it's just to show the inconsistencies, though, in terms of what we are saying here. Because as I go back, because we have to remember, here is it. You have the old version. And these scholars, they are able to conclude what kind of texture these things was written on, parchment, papyrus. They were able to conclude that if they are authentic writings and all of that, they have concluded that the Dead Sea Scrolls are authentic. And for us, which the Dead Sea Scrolls was discovered in 1948, 1947, in Qumran, close to the Dead Sea in Palestine. That matching the Masoretic text with the Dead Sea Scrolls, something is of amiss. Something went on between the 7th to the 10th century CE, our time, to what the Dead Sea Scrolls wrote, and it's there. It was translated. Scholars went over it. You know, those people who were responsible for all of these things when they unearthed, discovered new things, all of that, it was there. The evidence was conclusive that when you put the Dead Sea Scrolls of Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8 and 9, and the Masoretic text, the one that we read today in the King James Version, Deuteronomy chapter 32 and 9, the sons of Israel was not it. Was not it. And also Yahweh, the Tetragrammaton, which becomes Yahweh today, was one of many sons of God, of Elohim.
Okay.
Of El.
Greg, I want you to listen to what I'm going to say. Now, Africa, I just played a clip in relation to Adam, and an Adam that we've not heard of. You understand? The Adam that we hear of, and this is something I questioned when I was a boy going to Sunday school, and I questioned, why is it that God would... Satan was the son of the morning. He was in heaven, as they say. There was a falling out. Why would God put Satan on earth and then create man on earth, knowing that Satan was a god himself? You understand? And put man within the realm of an evil god and not expect that that evil God was going to hold sway on man. These are things I ask myself. So here we have the original story of Adam, and we hear Adam is in the garden, and Adam is ignorant. You understand? He's walking around and he's naked. Next thing, God comes and God makes Eve. They're both walking around and naked. And I'm asking myself as a boy, well, why put them together as companion, but they're naked? And, you know, the next thing you know, the serpent comes and he says, you see that food there? If you eat it, you're not going to really die. You're going to. So they eat it, and then after they eat it, they see themselves. For the first time, they now realize, hey, I'm a man. You're a woman. Hey, you look good, you know. I think we're going to get in. You understand? We say, why would God create you, put you in this Garden of Eden, surrounded by, and keep you ignorant? That's the Adam that we know. And then after now you eat the fruit and you become knowledgeable, God throws you out of the garden, where you would think that God would say, okay, so you know, but he says, God, you're coming like gods. Okay, but this Adam that we're hearing now, that we don't hear of before, this version is telling us Adam wasn't stupid. Adam was aware. Adam knew that this God that was cast down out of heaven was not the real God, and he was a fraud. And that God was aware that Adam knew. You understand? And how is it that after Adam stands up to this false God and says, I am aware that you are not God, and I am knowledgeable of certain things and so forth, God chose him out of the garden? Because we know of the Adam and Eve story, God threw them out of the garden of Eden. So to me, this story of the Adam that we don't hear of makes more sense than the story of the Adam that we've been taught all these years. You understand what I'm saying, Africa?
Yes.
So these are the things why eventually we move away from what you're trying to cram down our throat, because what you're trying to cram down our throat doesn't really make any sense.
It is interesting that some apologists, for instance, when you spoke about, and I did say Lilith, because I'm familiar. I didn't read all of the, the
literature relating to her.
Yes, but I got enough to know that, wow, and if you read some of Isaiah maybe, and some of the prophets, you might just find, like what the narrator said.
Yeah.
It is interesting that we will say that Lilith goes all the way back to the Mesopotamia, but a lot of the content came from other areas, like the Ugarites, like in Syria.
Yeah.
Earlier, that made its way into the Bible, and has been spliced into, and what would be allowed, and then the prophets, they start to proclaim there's only one Yahweh, and all of the others should be pushed aside.
To note again, and Africa, Greg, I want you to come in. To note
I'm
again,
listening.
To note again, this God, this can't remember the name of this God, but
I didn't hear much because
because
but
you had left.
I knew about.
Yeah.
I got the clip before the audio.
But this God proclaims himself the one and only God, even though he was thrown out of heaven where there were other gods. You understand what I'm saying?
That is the modus operandi. And I bring it home here. I bring it home here to say that Premier Mark Brantley had his budget speech. And it's not only Premier Mark Brantley is going to speak. It's going to have Minister Evelyn and the other minister will present theirs. Just like how in Job, where the sons of God assembled to present their responsibilities to El Elyon, the Most High. Similarly, it's going to have our budget down on St. Kitts. The federal parliament, federal government, going to have its budget and what will be allotted to keep the nation safe in the Ministry of Education and
different.
If we're going to get the smart hospital, if we're going to get the school and so forth and so forth. This is how the inner council of the Most High operated with their responsibilities throughout.
Yeah. Given, designated to different individuals.
Yes, in different fields because of the energies. Some might be water spirit that are permeating the some might be plant earth that responsible for the trees and keeping the trees and everything. Some is water spirit, some is the sun, the spirit of light, and some is spirit of air and wind. And all of these elements come and make this condition what it is.
Yeah, because if we were to go back and look at the beginning when he says, let us.
And the man has become like one of us.
Let us make man.
In our image.
And then let's go back to the God again, the Lucifer, the son of the morning, thrown out of heaven, where he was on the right hand of the Father. You understand? He was on the right hand of the Father.
But what is so striking about it is that, okay, I got thrown out. How would Lucifer in Job, in the book of Job, infiltrate all of God's security to come back into the council? And then he was asked, where were you? And I was in the Roman 24. That doesn't make any sense for Lucifer to infiltrate such a security.
Yes.
You would think that man's security would be flawed.
Yes.
But you want to come tell me Lucifer right in the council?
Yeah.
Giving a stewardship for his responsibility?
But you see, that Africa explains why everything in relation to Christianity and what they imposed upon us during 400 years of oppression, it now makes sense because you want to morph Christianity in such a way where you want to push righteousness and that kind of stuff, but you still want to hold on to evil so that you can suppress a people and you can keep them in bondage for 400 years. So you morph the two, where you have evil. You can't distinguish between evil and good. You understand what I'm saying? Here's where Satan is supposed to be out, but yet still he's back in, and you're embracing him, and he's, I mean...
Yeah, similar like our Minister for Energy, Mr. Economist Maynard, Honorable Economist Maynard, he's going to present his budget for, you know what I mean, geothermal now, because he's say he took over the responsible, you know what I mean, and the Prime Minister, he's going to talk about the smart hospital and all of that. Lucifer was there presenting his case.
That's it. And the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister.
Who was selected out of the others.
That's it, above
others.
Greg, you want to interject? You want to say anything?
Okay, Quint, so many points for me that I don't even know where to start with. To be quite honest about it, I don't even know where to start, but I'm going to try. Let me give it a shot. And if I forget to mention a point, Quint, please remind me of that point because I can't remember them all.
We don't expect. That is why when I asked you earlier, I expected you would have spoken, because the more we elucidate, the more we elaborate and expound, it's going to be harder for you to, address all of them. But just do what you can.
Right. I don't want Africa to say again that I will run from points. I don't want him to say that. If I fail to address a point, remind me of it.
I have the book. No. I have not seen you in a while. I have the book. I have a book. I want to impart it with you. Share it with you. I like to share.
Okay. So go ahead, Africa.
Oh, very good. Okay. No, let me take a crack at this. Let me start here. The book of Isaiah and other scriptures say, I am the Lord God. There is none other beside me. There is none other like me. There is none other before me, above me, beside me, or anything like that. I alone am God, as you already mentioned, Quint. Now, in the Bible, yes, angels are referred to as gods. Even human judges are referred to as gods, okay? What God is saying there, when he said he is the only God, there is none other but him, or like him, or before him, or after him, is that God is saying literally, I alone am God. But God, in a figurative or metaphorical sense, refer to some creatures, like I said, angels and even human judges and that sort of stuff, as gods. But they are only meant in a figurative sense because they have certain like judging positions where that carry power. The word God in the Hebrew, which is Elohim, mean mighty one. So so because they are in position of judges and that sort of stuff, they are considered to be creatures with might, given by God, of course, to them. And so that is why they are called figuratively Elohim, gods. But literally, only the God of the Bible is really God, literally speaking. Now, the Gnostics, as you mentioned, yes, the Gnostics did speak very ill, sinfully and wickedly and evilly against the God who created the world. Yes, the Gnostics did that. And the Gnostics were condemned even by the writers of the Bible. The first set of Gnostics are what you call proto-Gnostics. They were even condemned because the Gnostics believed that the physical or material things are evil and wicked, and therefore a good God could not have created this material universe. So therefore they consider the God that created this material universe to be the wicked God, and they consider therefore the God of the Bible to be a wicked God. Okay? These are not secret things. No. John and so on.
Well, and before you go on, it is understandable why the creators of the Bible would condemn them.
Yes, one the reason why I shouldn't say creators of the Bible. One the reason why the human authors of the Bible, because God is the ultimate author. But one of the reasons why the human authors of the Bible, especially John, said this to the proto-Gnostics, the proto-Gnostics in his day, the forerunners, the Gnostics forerunners. The reason why John said in condemning them is that John tells them, hey, you all are saying physical, material things are evil, but yet you all want to praise Jesus Christ, who is God. And they don't say that Jesus Christ was God and not a man. That's why they were one of the reasons why they were called Antichrist. And John is saying, no, Jesus is both God and man, and Jesus was physical. He had a material body. We saw him, we spoke with him, we touched him, and so on and so on. So Jesus Christ was a material, physical man, and yes, at the same time, he was, is, and will always be, for all eternity, from all eternity to all eternity, God. Okay?
Okay. So we're only got about 3 more minutes, right?
Yes.
So there's something that I wanted to say. Go ahead. It's going to come back.
Yes. So as
And
John said,
bearing in mind, I also want Africa to make a closing remark too. So
yeah. You go cut in and tell me, Greg. Okay, that's it.
Okay. So
you do that, Quint.
okay.
So yeah. So we see that John condemned the Gnostics. So therefore, when the Gnostics in the Gnostic literature say all kind of stuff that are contrary to the Bible, and those literatures were written 200, 300, and so 100 years after the Bible was already closed, they have no credence to them. They have no credibility to them. What have credibility is what the apostles and so wrote, who were disciples of Jesus Christ, who were with Jesus Christ, who interacted with Jesus Christ, who saw him after his resurrection and interacted with him after his resurrection and that sort of stuff. Unlike the Gnostics, who wrote this stuff 200, 300, and so 100 years after.
Okay.
So that's it, Quint?
Yeah. Africa.
Okay, thank you for your time, Quint. I wish I could address more, but maybe next time by the will of God. God bless you all.
Well,
all
yeah.
All right, thanks.
And by the way, Katense gave me the important information, the contact information. Thank us so much. Thank us so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Katense. Thank you.
All right, Greg. This will be the last show. Interaction. It's we're coming into this season, a special season for many of us, most of us, and so we respect and honor and pay homage to that season, and so we kind of tone it down. The political aspect of it will be put on the back burner till January, the second week or thereabouts, until other people. So I just wanted to give a little review of the episodes that I have covered. I have not scratched the surface as yet. Just scratch the surface because we can go deeper. But today I gave it a little twist. It went down the biblical aspect of it in more details, and there are so many things that we grew up with. Sunday school, we know it. I don't even skim the Bible pages anymore, but it's here. Yeah. So I just paraphrase verses to really bring
and
about.
I must commend you because you have an ability that I don't have. I don't know how you get it done, the way how you remember those names, and I don't. I would know. I could tell you the history. I could tell you what happened and so forth, but I don't hold names, and it is intentional. When I was very young, I decided certain things I wasn't gonna cram my brain, with certain things because I'm a human being. I'm limited. I don't, I don't want to. One day I'm gone crazy. You understand? But I must commend you. I admire the way you can just pull those names out, and man, I tell you, yeah.
Yes, thanks. Because I'm dedicated to it. My friends growing up in my Rasta days and the earlier days, and they would have admired me for that too. Yeah. They would have relied on me because it always, like the Bible was always the foundation. Yeah. But something was of a miss, and like Mrs. Henry agreed that What Moses knew, he got it from Africa. Even what Greg trying to say, Mesopotamia, yes, there are other regions outside, but you will find that Nimrod had a vast empire.
Yeah.
You know, Nimrod, vast empire. You know what I mean? Not just restricted to what we will call Africa today because of politics.
Yeah.
And the geographic space of the continent of Africa, but it was vast. So even something outside of the African continent, which Nimrod was one of the sons of Cush, you know, his sons, one of his sons.
When we look at the history of the Bible and how it has morphed and how they have used certain things to keep us in mental and physical slavery. And we look at, for instance, that part of the Africa where they call the Middle East and all. It all comes together, you know, where we understand if people look at this, if they can take a part of Africa and dissect it and try to alienate it from Africa by calling it the Middle East, why is it that you don't see where if they're going to bring a book to you, that they're going to insert things in that book that are lies, that are geared towards alienating you from your memory, from your roots, from your heritage? What I wanted to say in relation to Greg is that Africa, when we sit down here and we listen to Greg, we realize Greg is well versed, you know. Greg knows a lot. The only thing is that he's selective. He decides, you know, I guess to some extent, a considerable extent, all of us are, because we have decided to be selective. I have decided, I'm not going to speak for you, to sort of reject what the Bible, you know, the biblical aspect and because I see where it was keeping me in suppression and passive and all that kind of stuff. So Greg also is selective because he selects an ideology that he can conform with that pushes his doctrine.
And I must say, I see the Bible as a Bible needs to, like a jigsaw puzzle where the pieces needs to be put in the proper perspective.
Yeah.
And I can say, I'm far from it, but I have been putting the pieces into the proper perspective.
Yeah.
Look how the Satan thing, and Greg, no Christian person can tell me. The only thing is the Christian gonna say that, oh, Satan said he was up and down roaming the earth. Why did Satan was there in the council before the Most High? Why? When he was done already being kicked out.
Yeah.
What would have given him entrance back there? Were the guards asleep? They cannot say why. So, just like the Middle East, and for the fact that a lot of Ethiopians do the pilgrimage, like the Ethiopian eunuch did his pilgrimage, like Simon of Cyrene, who carried the cross of Jesus. That's another one we're going to deal with.
Yeah. Well, remember, we're 4 minutes over time.
Like Simon of Cyrene and them, who was in that space where they call Jerusalem. It was what they call Melchizedek was the king of Salem in that same area. So we knew about those places. There are black people there today who said they never come from nowhere else but there.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6 generations. They never heard the grandparents talk about no place else but there. So we know they push people from those areas.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for listening. I just wish to say safe holidays to all. See you back in the second. We'll go back to things as normal. See you on the second Wednesday of January 2026. And you'll be safe. Take care of yourselves. And we will continue this conversation. There's a lot to cover.
Yeah, same to you. Enjoy the season, and we look forward to the Almighty Creator sparing our lives that we can continue this next year.
Thanks. Thanks, much.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Ready to make this holiday season your biggest and brightest yet? Whatever the reason, come to National Bank this season. For the perfect gifts, new furniture, or new appliances, get up to $150,000 unsecured. Or for that brand new vehicle, drive off with up to $250,000. No down payment, no interest rates, and fast approval. Whatever the reason, come to National this season. Skip the holiday rush and apply online at www.sknanb.com. This offer ends January 31st, 2026. Apply today.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landed